Hi there, welcome to this video on making bannocks or dampers. So what's in a name? I call them bannocks, dampers is another name, and I'm sure there's a load of other names beside that. What I'm going to do is take you through the most basic of breads, through to fancy ones like this and more. All the footage is from camping at home and the beach, and the equipment I've used in this is that zebra billy can insert, my non-stick pan and my reflector. In fact, I've modded this zebra billy insert so I can put two sticks in to hold it up against the fire. Your most basic damper or bannock or whatever you want to call it, you just need a handful of plain flour, although usually I use self-raising, a little bit of salt or sugar depending on what you want, and just keep putting water in. It's about 3 to 2 and mixing that until you get a pliable dough, and you'll end up with something like that. So to do a rudimentary one, whether it's a basic dough or not, you can literally just chuck them on a bed of well burnt down embers, or you can use a flat stone, or what I've done here, I just heated some little lumps of granite up. Like that. So flatten them down, because traditionally you use rocks in a rock oven, so you can cook big bits of meat quite successfully. And what you do, on like that. Watch it like a hawk though, because obviously it'll cook rather quickly. There we go, I've been flipping that over and over just to make sure it's not burning too much, and it hasn't, and I'll pull that off and show you what it's like inside. What I would say as well, just check in the notes for some of the things that you shouldn't use as quote unquote rocks in there to heat up, because some can be quite dangerous. You can't quite see it on the film, but there's a load of steam just issued out from there. Once you finish with them, you can obviously pull them out the fire, but do not try and handle them for some time afterwards. And also a salient moment here, that piece on the far left has had a little bit crack off, and this is granite. This is a favourite of mine. I'll do just about anything for roast Turkish Delight. I've made this one up with milk as well, so it should be lush. What I'm going to do with this one as well is cook it in the reflector oven. I'm using the natural slope at the bottom of the reflector oven to be my advantage. What I've done, I've pinned it at the back with a peg so that it's even more angled towards the flames. I've just flipped it over to give the bottom a bit of colour as well. There we go, that's puffed up lovely. It's like a scone almost, or a scone, whatever you want to call it. And the self-raising flour has really made that nice and light. Now this is one of my favourites that I normally do at home after Christmas, because I've got lots of mixed fruit left over from making the cake, and this is the secret ingredient, Guinness. Nice hollow sound. So along the lines of the Guinness one that we've just done, there is a non-alcoholic one you can perhaps do, and it's a good one to do with groups like Cubs, Scouts and Girl Guiding UK. What you need is a Ziploc bag and something like Coke. And into the bag put 2 good handfuls of self-raising flour like this. It should be about 50 grams or thereabouts. And also you've got the option of putting sugar in as well. If you're using a fully leaded Coke, then you don't need this, but if you're using a one that hasn't got sugar in like I am, then yes, you will need a little bit of sugar putting in. Then you place it in the corner of your bag. You can use a smaller bag than this, because if you put it in too tight a bag, then you're going to ask for accidents to happen. So what we're going to do is just going to wet the whistle of that a little bit. Like that. It's better to put too little in and then work up to it. Right, so then we seal the bag. Obviously make sure you do, because you don't, like I say, you don't want it squidging out. Because we're about to do the chicken wing. No, really, we are. Start squidging. Oh, I don't feel the slightest bit silly at all. And I'll tell you what, it is funny watching all of the kids in the hall looking like one-winged chickens. They keep doing it till it's mixed. Still a bit squidgy, so you could put a little bit of flour in if you want, but you know, it doesn't matter, it's still going to cook up into a bannock. Break the contents out of the bag, form it up and put it into a heated pan. I put a little bit of sunflower oil in this, because obviously it's quite a sticky mixture. And there we go, another winner. Now I'm having an Indian curry tonight, and what I've got here, I'm going to make a sort of version of a naan. Not one for the purists, I'm sure, but in here I've got some gram flour, which is chickpea, and the 2/3 of it is self-raising. Now what I'm also going to do is put in here a little bit of garlic salt. It's not like I'm going to annoy anyone with garlic breath out here. I have, just for the pose value, but fairly authentic, these are kalonji seeds. And then put a little bit of butter instead of ghee. And the final ingredient that will bring it all together is a little bit of yoghurt. So this will make a decent size naan for me. It's 2 fistfuls of flour, and then you just mix it as ever until you get a nice sort of dough. So a few moments later, and possibly about half of that little pot of yoghurt, you start to get your dough. And that's about there. And you can see it's got a slightly yellow hue to it with the gram flour in there. Again, I'm going to use my non-stick pan. It's the one that I melted the butter in. So you can either have this angled up like the zebra billy lid, but what I'm going to do is actually just put this straight on the coals. I've tried to make it an authentic shape, and as always, the thinner you get it, the quicker it'll cook. There we go, that's the evening's tea sorted. Another thing that gives a yellowy bread is cattail pollen, which you collect in season with a bag as shown in the picture. You can also use egg to do a brioche type one too. One other slightly left field suggestion I've got for you is to try croissant dough, which you can get at your supermarket in the butters and fats section. I put a clip in from a previous video I did, which is coming up now. I challenge you to try it and not think that's pretty damn good eating. Not quite a bannock, but worth putting in. There we go, that's literally your Mark 1. I've just used the base of the can just to cut 3 shapes out, and they puff up really nicely. And obviously I've just flipped those over. And there's your next one. That's mixed fruits studied into one that's slightly larger. You have to, if you put it on high heat, do them quite flat. If you want to do them a little thicker, they've got to be slow and low. This is an experimental bannock. It's 50-50 strong white flour and self-raising, and it's bound together with elderflower syrup. Actually, it's come out rather well. I'll tell you what it's like in the notes. Doing a sort of bannock come scone in the reflector oven on the beach, but I've used a self-lighting charcoal bag. It's been a bit problematic in the wind that's been whistling down the cove, and I'm just a bit worried that the sea's actually going to beat me to it as it's coming in. And I'll be using kelp to pick the pot up, so I've forgotten to bring the pot tool. There we go, I've got the win, and that's where the tide finally is. This one's quite a robust one. This is Acorn that's been processed and mixed with self-raising flour and honey, and then it's made into a little patty as before. And there we go, I've just taken that out, and you can see that's quite a dark robust colour, but it's not bad eating. You can see it's almost like a wholemeal sort of bannock. With the versatility of bannocks, you could go on all day with the combinations, but I'm just going to finish off with 3 here. From left to right, you've got khorasan ancient grain flour, self-raising flour and dates. The middle one is sweet potato flour from an Asian supermarket and self-raising flour, and that's like the sort of Japanese milk bread. It's very light, that one. And finally, a mixed nut, coconut and choc chip bannock is self-raising and self-made chestnut flour, hence the slightly darker colour. Hope you've seen something that tickles your fancy, and enjoy.